actually ask a few more than 20 questions and just use the most interesting 20.
What the hell?
You
said 20 questions. Am I shiny? I'm the former governor of Massachusetts, and I am a former business executive and civil rights lawyer and poor kid from the south side of Chicago. No, I hope not. It's not like I always grew up wanting to be president, but I also know that having grown up in poverty on the South Side and had the range of life and leadership experiences that I have had, that yes, I have lived the American dream, but that dream has been vanishing for more and more people in more and more places, and that's a thing worth fighting for. I kept hearing from folks, they would say, I used to be incarcerated, I'm out now, and I can't get a job. And the reason I can't get a job is often because I have to report that I have a record on the application. So we were among the first states to ban the box. And I remember going out to sign that bill, and this guy hands me his cell phone. He says, talk to my friend. The voice at the other end says, Governor, I really appreciate your signing this bill. I know it's going to make a difference in my life. I think it was 4 or 5 years later, I stopped at a restaurant downtown, and this guy came walking by, and he said, do you remember signing reform to eliminate the box? Do you remember talking to a guy on the cell phone that day? I was that guy. He said, I was sitting in jail when you took that call. He said, I got out, I got a job in this restaurant on account of that law. He said, I'm the executive chef at this restaurant today. I'm not that interested in abstract policy. I'm interested in policy where it gets right down to how people live their lives. I have this weather app. I'm a very amateur farmer. We have a place in Western Mass where we grow apples and peaches and pears and plums and chickens, and I keep bees. And so I'm very sensitive to the weather. Well, I was prepared to enter the race a little bit more than a year ago, but my wife was diagnosed with uterine cancer right beforehand, and so that's the sort of thing that brings your feet back to earth. We celebrated 35 years of marriage in May, and she is cancer-free. I'm old school. I try not to curse, and if I curse, it's probably something you've heard a cartoon character say.
Son of a...
You were a campaign surrogate for Barack Obama in 2012.
Yeah, proudly.
And one of the core arguments against Mitt Romney was that he was ill-suited to be president because of his work for Bain Capital, a private equity firm that profited from moving companies into bankruptcy and laying off the workers. You then went on to work for Bain Capital. How do the criticisms that the Obama campaign lodged against Mitt Romney not also apply to you?
What I did at Bain Capital was launch a business to invest in companies that deliver social or environmental good. We invested in a company that diverted green waste from landfills where it would otherwise turn into methane gas and instead recycles it and sells it as composted soil and ground cover. Or a company that delivers high quality dental services for poor kids. And I think companies like that deserve capital. I married an incredible woman. We were set up actually. I was told you gotta come to this Halloween party, and they said you have to come in costume. I got up in this caftan I brought back from when I lived in Africa, and I had a spear and I had no shoes, and I was the only one they had invited to come in costume. I remember Diane being across the room in a black silk pantsuit. I didn't frighten her off entirely. We eventually got to know each other. It turns out that she was a survivor of domestic abuse, and through that taught me a lot about the courage, and frankly, she was a brilliant but reluctant First Lady of Massachusetts, and when she started to talk about those issues, she saved a lot of people. Are you willing to spend political capital, or are you just about accumulating it? Getting solutions that last is going to require spending political capital, but I think that's what the job is about.
Now that's your question to the other candidates. Here's a question from another candidate, this one from another former governor of Massachusetts. He asks, what are you going to do about global warming?
Well, we're going to do a lot of the things that we did in Massachusetts. You know, we joined the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, which is a regional cap and trade system, and we use the proceeds to invest in energy efficiency, bringing us to #1. We closed the last 2 coal power plants and invested in the economic innovation around solar and wind.
What would you say to voters who might be concerned that you, as a former oil executive, might not be willing to push America away from fossil fuels?
I went to that oil company because they had a broken employment and promotion system, and I was asked to come in and help them fix it, and I'm very proud of what we did there. We also were the first of the big oil companies to leave the coalition of oil companies that were funding the opposition to climate change. But remember that the person you're asking this question of is the same one who created a national model for climate change response in Massachusetts. When I was 14 and came to Massachusetts for the first time to go to a boarding school, you know, it was okay on the campus, but if I tried to walk just to the local convenience store, I was almost always stopped by the local police and asked questions about whether I belonged in the neighborhood where I was living at the time. It was not, 6 months ago that here in New York, I was in jeans and a jacket and tried to get served in a midtown store and couldn't get anybody to pay any attention to me while other patrons were looked after right away. We're not done with the work of anti-discrimination. If anything, I think we've made a kind of an uneasy peace with anti-discrimination in this country, but we haven't resolved the question of integration, how we actually live together and work together and play together. I think I had a point of view about the death penalty when I was much, much younger, before I had actual experience representing people on death row. And I saw how incredibly arbitrary, how if the defendant was black and the victim was white, how the chances of getting the death penalty were exponentially greater. And it made me convinced when it comes to issues as intimate, as sensitive as the death penalty, better to have government out of it. I ran for governor the first time, and we needed a campaign theme, and my youngest daughter suggested this tune, Proud. I have to tell you, it was just right. I did not know at the time that it was an LGBTQ anthem. I love the song, and I love what it evokes in the campaign and in us. My worst habit is probably hot fudge sauce on ice cream with a movie late. Ooh. So I used to say Denzel Washington because my wife would actually prefer Denzel Washington over me.
King Kong ain't got on me!
But now I think maybe Trevor Noah. I get about 5, I probably need about 6.5. Really? You're gonna lead me right into that trouble? I honor and respect the resistance themes of hip-hop, but the language is sometimes a little harsh, especially for a father of daughters. My first paying job was on the snow cone truck in the summer on each run. I got paid in all these sticky coins. We faced a crisis on the southern border when I was in my last year of office, when there were lots of unaccompanied children coming across the border fleeing violence in Latin America. The Obama administration asked a number of states if we would help, and I said we would. I remember 3 days later, my wife sent me to Home Depot with a list. I'm standing in the checkout line, and this guy just lets me have it, yelling, "I disagree, Governor, it's wrong, you shouldn't have done it." I thanked him for his feedback. There were 5 or 6 other encounters in the store on the same subject, and in every one of those, someone whispered, "Governor, I'm with you. Governor, thanks for looking out for those kids." We have learned to shout our anger and to whisper our kindness, and it's completely upside down. That we need to learn again to shout our kindness and our compassion and our justice. I think we'll begin to realize we way outnumber the haters, and we'll start to build the kind of prosperous and just country for everyone, everywhere, that we deserve.
Thanks for watching. Check out more presidential contenders in our full 20 Questions for 2020 playlist. And be sure to subscribe to NowThis so you don't miss a thing.